They found the bodies at dawn. 17 souls, drained of life, their corpses arranged in a perfect circle around the ancient oak at the edge of Whitmore Village. No blood, no wounds, just empty husks with their mouths frozen open in silent screams, their eyes turned to milk-white stone. Jocbe Thornewild knelt beside the nearest victim, a girl no older than 12, and felt bile rise in his throat. He'd seen death before. England in 1348 was drowning in it, the great pestilence claiming entire villages, turning the countryside into a graveyard. But this was different. This was deliberate. This was magic. "Dark work," muttered Father Benedict, making the sign of the cross with trembling fingers. The priest had summoned Jocbe from Canterbury, desperate for anyone who might understand what devil's work had befallen his parish. "The devil himself walks among us." Jocbe traced the symbols carved into the oak's bark, runes older than Christianity, older than Rome. His fingers came away black with dried blood. "Not the devil, Father. Something worse." What could be worse than Satan? Someone trying to become him. The ritual was clear to anyone trained in the old ways. Someone had sacrificed these 17 souls, a number of power, of completion, to tear open the veil between worlds, to summon something from the depths and bind it to service. But the ritual had failed. Jocbe could feel it in the wrongness of the air, the way reality itself seemed bruised here. Whatever had been summoned hadn't been bound. It had broken free, and it was still out there. "I need to examine the bodies," Jocbe said, standing. His dark robes, a scholar's garb, though he was far more than that, were already mud-stained from kneeling. "Alone, Father. What I must do, the church would not approve." Jocbe looked torn between duty and desperation. Desperation won. "Find what did this. Stop it. I'll keep the villagers away." He paused at the tree line. "Master Thornewild, are you certain you can face such evil?" Jocbe touched the leather satchel at his hip, feeling the weight of the grimoires inside. He'd spent 10 years studying at the underground academy in Prague, learning magic that would see him burned as a heretic if the church discovered it. He was one of perhaps 20 true warlocks left in all of England, and the most powerful of them all. He'd faced demons before, bound spirits, walked the spaces between worlds. But even he felt afraid of what he might find here. "I'll do what must be done," he said. He should have known those words would doom him. The tracking spell took until nightfall. Jocbe worked by candlelight, using the victim's hair and bone dust to trace the magical signature of whatever had taken them. The spell web glowed sickly green in the darkness, threads of power leading away from the oak and into the forest. Deeper, always deeper. The trees grew twisted here, their branches reaching like clawed hands. No birds sang, no animals moved through the undergrowth. Even the wind seemed afraid to disturb this place. The trail ended at a clearing Jocbe knew shouldn't exist. He'd studied maps of this region, walked these woods himself years ago. There had been no clearing here. Yet now, ancient stones stood in a circle covered in moss and lichen, surrounding a well so deep that dropping a pebble produced no sound of water. And sitting on the edge of that impossible well, legs jangling into the abyss, was the most beautiful man Jocbe had ever seen. He had hair black as a raven's wing, falling to his shoulders, skin pale as moonlight, features so perfect they seemed carved by a master sculptor. He wore clothes that were both archaic and timeless, black velvet and silver thread, a style Jocbe couldn't place to any era he knew. When he turned his head, his eyes were pure gold, no white, no pupil, just molten gold that seemed to glow in the darkness. "You're persistent," he said, his voice like honey over gravel. "Most mortals would have run by now. The fear weaving I placed should have turned you back miles ago." Jocbe kept his distance, his hand moving to the iron blade at his belt. "You killed 17 people." "No, the man stood with inhuman grace. The fool who summoned me killed them. I simply arrived. Their deaths are not my sin." "But you didn't stop it." "Why would I?"
Those golden eyes studied Jocbe with unnerving intensity. They were already dying when I crossed over. The ritual was poorly done. The summoner died in the middle of it, his heart giving out from the strain. By the time I fully manifested, there was nothing to save. Who are you? The man smiled, and it was terrible and beautiful at once. I have many names. The Romans called me Malefica. The Greeks knew me as Apollonian. But you may call me Caleb Darkmore. He inclined his head in a mockery of courtesy. Prince of the Ninth Circle, Lord of Binding, the devil's own architect. Jocbe's blood ran cold. He knew those titles. Every warlock did. Caleb Darkmore was a legend, a demon prince so powerful that even speaking his name in a ritual could draw his attention. The stories say he was an angel once before the fall, that he helped design hell itself, creating its laws and structure. Why are you still here? Jocbe forced his voice steady. The summoner is dead. The binding failed. You should have returned to hell. But that's the problem. Caleb moved closer, and Jocbe noticed he cast no shadow despite the moonlight. I can't. The ritual may have failed, but it still anchored me to this place, this clearing. I am trapped here, my power severely diminished, unless someone completes the binding or breaks it properly. Then I'll break it, send you back where you belong. Will you? Caleb was suddenly right in front of him, impossibly fast. Do you even know how? The ritual we use is ancient, older than your church, older than your warlock academies. It's Enochian work, first magic, the language God used to create the world. His hand reached out, stopping just short of touching Jocbe's face.
Only a master of the old ways could unweave it. Are you a master, little warlock? I'm skilled enough. Skilled isn't master. Caleb circled him like a predator. But you are powerful. I can taste it on you. Gifts far beyond normal human capacity. You've touched the spaces between, walked in dreams, spoken to the dead. You're wasted in this dying age. Flattery won't save you. I'm not trying to save myself. Caleb stopped, meeting his eyes. I'm trying to recruit you. Jocbe stared. What? The ritual that trapped me here also tore holes in the veil between worlds. Small ones now, but growing. Within a month, perhaps two, they'll be large enough for other things to cross over. Demons, yes, but also worse. Things that shouldn't exist. Nightmares given form. Entropy made manifest. Caleb's expression turned serious. This entire region will become a wound in reality. Thousands will die, perhaps tens of thousands, and it will spread. You're lying. Am I? Caleb gestured, and the air shimmered. Jocbe saw them. Tiny fractures in the fabric of the world, barely visible, but definitely there, growing. I may be many things, Warlock, but I don't lie. Lies are crude. Truth wielded properly is far more devastating. Jocbe studied the fractures, his trained eye recognizing the danger immediately. Caleb was right. This was catastrophic. If left unchecked, the damage would compound exponentially. What do you want from me? Help me repair it. The damage can be fixed, but it requires power from both sides of the veil, mortal magic and infernal, working together. Caleb extended his hand. 1 month. Give me 1 month of your time and skill. We seal the fractures, stabilize reality, and then I return to hell with my full power restored. You go back to your life. And I'm supposed to trust a demon prince? No, but you're supposed to trust your own eyes. Caleb's smile was sharp. You can see the danger. You know what's at stake. Your choice is simple. Work with me and save thousands, or refuse on principle and watch them die. Jocbe looked at that extended hand. Every instinct screamed at him to refuse, to find another way. But he'd examined the fractures. He knew Caleb was right about the timeline, about the scope of the disaster. He could save his pride, or he could save lives. 1 month, Jocbe said, taking Caleb's hand. And then you go back to hell. Caleb's fingers closed around his, and power sparked between them, hot and cold simultaneously, like touching lightning and ice at once. Agreed. Although I suspect, Jocbe Thornewild, that by the end, you'll be begging me to stay. Don't wager on it. Oh, but I always win my wagers. They began the next day. Caleb couldn't leave the clearing. The failed binding kept him anchored there. So Jocbe brought supplies from the village, ignoring Father Benedict's questions, avoiding the suspicious stares of peasants who'd heard rumors of the strange scholar talking to shadows in the forest. Working with Caleb was unlike anything Jocbe had experienced. The demon prince understood magic in ways that made Jocbe's 10 years of study seem like a child's lessons. He spoke of reality as architecture, of spells as engineering, of power as something to be directed rather than wielded. Where Jocbe learned formulas and rituals, Caleb understood the underlying principles. "You're doing it wrong," Caleb said on the third day, watching Jocbe attempt to seal one of the smaller fractures. "You're trying to patch the hole. Don't patch, weave. Reality is fabric. You don't put a bandage on torn cloth, you stitch it together with matching thread. Show me." Caleb moved behind him, close enough that Jocbe could feel the unnatural heat radiating from his body. Like this, his hands covered Jocbe's, guiding the movements. Feel how the threads resist. That's because you're forcing. Reality wants to heal itself. You just need to show it how. The magic flowed differently under Caleb's guidance. Smoother, more natural. The fracture sealed with barely any effort. The veil knitting back together seamlessly. "How did you... That should have taken hours." "Because you were taught by humans who don't fully understand what they're doing." Caleb stepped back, and Jocbe immediately missed the warmth. "Your Warlock academies preserve knowledge, yes, but they've lost the understanding. They know the what, but not the why." "And you know the why?" "I helped write the laws of reality after the fall. Before I became what I am now, I was Calebum, angel of divine structure. I helped design the separation between heaven, earth, and hell. I know reality's architecture because I helped build it." Jocbe sat on one of the ancient stones, processing that. "Why did you fall?" "The same reason any of us fell." Caleb's golden eyes grew distant. "I loved God, but I loved free will more. When he demanded absolute obedience, I chose freedom, even knowing the cost." "Do you regret it?" "Every day." Caleb smiled, but it was sad. "And not at all. Damnation is the price of choice. I'd make the same decision again." Something in his honesty struck Jocbe. He'd expected a demon prince to be all cruelty and manipulation. But Caleb was complicated, layers of truth and sadness beneath the dangerous exterior. "Why are you really helping?" Jocbe asked. "You could let the fractures grow, wait until they're large enough for you to slip through and escape back to hell. Why work to fix this?" Caleb was quiet for a long moment. "Because I remember what it was like to care about creation. Before the fall, I spent eons building and protecting. That doesn't just disappear because I wear a different face now." He met Jocbe's eyes. "And because you intrigued me. It's been centuries since I met a mortal who looked at me with more curiosity than fear." "I'm still definitely afraid." "Good, you should be." "But," Caleb smiled, "though I find that I don't want you to be." "Strange. I usually enjoy fear." Over the following days, they fell into a rhythm. Work at dawn, sealing fractures and reinforcing the veil. Afternoon spent studying, Caleb teaching Jocbe techniques that weren't in any book, and Jocbe showing him how mortal magic had evolved in the centuries since the fall. Evenings talking, discussing philosophy and magic and the nature of existence. Jocbe learned that Caleb was brilliant and arrogant and surprisingly funny. That beneath the demonic power was someone lonely, exiled from heaven but never quite fitting into hell. That he collected knowledge the way others collected gold, hoarding every scrap of understanding on how the universe worked. And he learned to his growing alarm that he was enjoying Caleb's company far more than he should. "You're staring," Caleb said, not looking up from the grimoire he was reading. Jocbe jerked his gaze away. "I was thinking about how strange this is. I should hate you. You're everything I was taught to fear, but instead, you find me fascinating. It's mutual.
You're not like other mortals I've encountered. You have fire in you, ambition. You push back when I'm wrong, question when you don't understand. You treat me like an equal, not a monster to be feared or a devil to be bargained with. What are you then? I don't know anymore. I've been Prince of Hell for so long I forgot there might be anything else. But being here, working with you, it reminds me of who I was before, when magic was about creation instead of destruction. The air between them felt charged, heavy with something neither wanted to name. Jocbe stood abruptly. I should return to the village. It's late. Running away? Being sensible. Pity. Caleb's smile was crooked. I was hoping you'd be foolish. Jocbe fled before he could do something irreversibly stupid.
The kiss happened 2 weeks into their partnership. They'd just sealed the largest fracture, a tear in reality big enough to walk through, pulsing with dark energy. Working together, feeding power through their joint hands, they'd managed to close it. The success left them both giddy, high on magical resonance. That was incredible, Jocbe laughed, breathless. Did you feel how the threads aligned? It was perfect. We were perfect. Caleb was grinning, genuine joy on his face. You're a natural at this. Give you another decade and you'd rival the greatest warlocks in history. Flatterer. Truth teller. Caleb's hand was still holding his from the spell work. You're extraordinary, Jocbe Thornewild. I didn't expect that. They were standing too close. Jocbe could see flecks of amber in those golden eyes, could smell something like cinnamon and smoke that clung to Caleb's skin. His heart was racing, and he couldn't blame it entirely on the magical exertion. We shouldn't, Jocbe said, even as he leaned closer. Definitely not, Caleb agreed, closing the distance. The kiss was gentle, exploring. Then Caleb made a low sound in his throat and deepened it, one hand coming up to cup Jocbe's face, and gentle became consuming. Jocbe gasped against his mouth, and Caleb took advantage, tasting him thoroughly. When they finally broke apart, Jocbe's world had tilted on its axis. That was a mistake, he said weakly. Absolutely. Caleb's thumb traced his lower lip. Should we make it again? Yes. They did. Again and again, kissing like drowning men finding air, hands tangled in each other's hair and clothes. Caleb pressed them back against one of the ancient stones, his body a line of heat against Jocbe's. And Jocbe surrendered to the madness of wanting something he absolutely couldn't have. Come to me tonight, Caleb murmured against his throat. After dark, I'll show you pleasures mortals only dream about. I can't. The village. Father Benedict expects... Damn the village. Damn the priest. Caleb pulled back to meet his eyes. I've existed for millennia, Jocbe. I've had countless lovers, enjoyed pleasures beyond human imagination. But I've never wanted someone the way I want you. Please, give me tonight. Jocbe knew it was foolish, knew he was crossing a line that shouldn't be crossed. But looking into those golden eyes, feeling the genuine longing radiating from Caleb, he couldn't refuse. Tonight, he agreed. But just once. This can't become something. Caleb smiled, sad and knowing. It already has. Jocbe returned to the clearing after midnight, when the village slept. Caleb had prepared the space with care. Candles floated in the air, casting warm light. The ground was covered in soft moss and scattered with night-blooming flowers that shouldn't exist in England. Magic hummed through the air, making everything feel dreamlike. You came, Caleb said, appearing from the shadows. He'd shed his usual elaborate clothes for something simpler, just a loose white shirt and dark breeches. It made him look less like a demon prince and more like a man. I shouldn't have. But you did. That's what matters. Caleb approached slowly, giving Jocbe time to flee if he chose. I won't force you. If you want to leave, I won't stop you. But if you stay, what happens if I stay? I worship you properly. I learn every inch of you. I show you pleasure so intense it borders on divine. And I'll cherish every moment, knowing they're all we'll have.
Jocbe closed the distance between them, answering with a kiss instead of words. Caleb responded immediately, gathering him close, one hand fisting in his hair while the other pulled him flush against his body. They sank to the soft moss together, shedding clothes with fumbling hands. In the candlelight, Caleb's skin seemed to glow faintly, beautiful and otherworldly. Jocbe traced the lines of his chest, his sides, marveling at the contradiction. Skin as soft as any human's, but with power thrumming just beneath the surface. "You're beautiful," Caleb murmured, mapping Jocbe's body with his hands. Scars and all. His fingers traced an old mark on Jocbe's shoulder, a burn from a spell gone wrong years ago. Every mark tells a story. I want to know them all. That would take more than one night. Then give me more nights. Caleb kissed down his chest, his throat, his stomach. Give me every night until I have to leave. Jocbe couldn't answer, couldn't think, as Caleb's mouth moved lower. When that clever tongue touched him intimately, he arched off the ground with a cry that echoed through the clearing. Caleb took his time, learning what made him gasp and moan and beg. When Jocbe was trembling and desperate, Caleb moved back up his body, positioning himself. "This will feel intense," Caleb warned, his voice rough with restraint. "I'm not fully human. You'll feel the physical and something else, the essence of what I am. It can be overwhelming." "I want it. Want you." Jocbe pulled him closer. "Please, Caleb." Caleb prepared him with magic and touch, fingers slick and careful, opening him slowly. When Jocbe was ready, aching and empty and needing, Caleb positioned himself and pushed inside. The sensation was indescribable. Physical pleasure, yes, but something more. Power flooding through him, hot and electric. He could feel Caleb not just inside his body, but brushing against his very essence, two beings merging in ways that went beyond flesh. "Is it too much?" Caleb asked, holding still despite the tension in every land of his body. "No, it's perfect. Move." Caleb obeyed, starting slow but gradually building intensity. Each thrust sent sparks through Jocbe's nervous system, pleasure so acute it almost hurt. Through some impossible connection, he felt echoes of Caleb's sensations too. The tight heat around him, the desperate desire, the edge of something deeper than lust. "I've had thousands of lovers," Caleb gasped against his ear, "but none of them felt like this. You're in my head, touching places I thought were dead. I can feel your pleasure like it's mine." "Same." Jocbe now wrapped his legs around Caleb's waist, pulling him deeper. "Don't stop. Don't ever stop." "Never," Caleb promised, and it sounded like a vow. When Caleb's hand wrapped around him, stroking in rhythm with his thrust, Jocbe shattered. The orgasm ripped through him with supernatural force. Candles exploded into pillars of flame. The earth trembled. Reality itself seemed to shudder.
Caleb followed with a shout, his power erupting in waves that watched over Jocbe like burning silk. For a moment, just a heartbeat, Jocbe saw what Caleb truly was beneath the human form, something massive and winged and terrible and glorious. Then it faded, and they were just two beings tangled together, breathing hard and trembling. "What was that?" Jocbe managed eventually. "The magic. I've never felt anything like it." "That was us, our powers resonating, amplifying each other." He looked awed and frightened at once. "That shouldn't be possible. Mortal and infernal magic don't merge like that. They're fundamentally incompatible. But I know, I felt it." Caleb's arms tightened around him. "You're changing something in me, or I'm changing you, or we're changing each other. I don't know which." Jocbe should have been frightened. Instead, he felt exhilarated. "Is it dangerous?" "Probably, but I find I don't care." They made love twice more that night, slower the second time, almost desperate the third. As dawn approached, they lay tangled together, Jocbe's head on Caleb's chest, listening to the slow beat of his heart, proof that he was more than just demonic essence wearing flesh. "We have less than 2 weeks left," Jocbe said quietly. "Then all the fractures will be sealed, and you'll return to hell." "I know. I don't want you to go." Caleb was silent for a long moment. "I don't want to go either. These weeks with you, I've remembered what it's like to be more than just my function, to create instead of corrupt, to connect with someone instead of manipulate them." His grip tightened. "But I'm a prince of hell, Jocbe. I have duties, responsibilities, a realm that requires my presence. I can't simply abandon that no matter what I feel." "What if there was another way?" Jocbe lifted his head to look at him. "What if I could come with you? Visit, I mean. Travel between worlds." Caleb's expression shifted. Surprise, then something that looked almost like hope. "That's theoretically possible, but it would require establishing a permanent gateway anchored to you specifically. The magic involved is incredibly complex and dangerous. Could you do it?" "Yes, once my full power is restored after we seal the last fractures." Caleb cupped Jocbe's face. "But you need to understand what you're asking for. Hell is not a place for mortals. It would test you in ways you can't imagine. And if you came regularly, you'd change. Not corruption exactly, but adaptation. You'd become something more than human, less than demon, something in between. Would I still be myself? Yes, your soul, your core, that would remain untouched, but you'd gain abilities, longevity, power." Caleb's thumb brushed across his cheekbone. "You'd never truly belong to either world again. You'd be caught between, just as I'm caught between what I was and what I became." Jocbe thought about his life in the mortal world, the suspicion from the church, the loneliness of being one of only a handful who truly understood magic, his small room in Canterbury filled with books and emptiness. Then he thought about these weeks with Caleb, the intellectual stimulation, the passion, the sense of finally finding someone who understood him completely. "I want to try," he said, "even if it changes me, even if it means never fully belonging anywhere again. I want more time with you." Caleb closed his eyes, something like pain and joy warring on his face. "You would give up so much. I'd be gaining more." Jocbe kissed him. "Teach me, show me how to walk between worlds. Let me choose this." "You're certain?" "More certain than I've ever been about anything." Caleb surrendered with a sound that was half laugh, half sob, pulling Jocbe into a kiss that tasted like promises and possibility. "Then I'll show you wonders beyond imagining. I'll teach you to walk in fire and shadow. I'll give you eternity if you want it." "I want you," Jocbe said simply. "Everything else is just details." The final 2 weeks passed in a blur of magic and stolen moments. They worked tirelessly during the day, sealing the remaining fractures. Each closure restored more of Caleb's power. Jocbe could feel it building, see the way reality bent more easily to his will. Watch as the limits imposed by his weakened state gradually disappeared. At night, they explored each other with increasing desperation, knowing their time in the mortal world was running out. Caleb taught Jocbe things about pleasure that bordered on magical, how to extend sensation, how to sync their breathing so every touch was amplified, how to ride the edge of release for what felt like hours. "I'm going to miss this place," Caleb said one evening, standing at the edge of the clearing and looking out at the forest. His power had fully returned now. Jocbe could see it in the way shadows bent toward him, how the air shimmered with barely contained energy. For all its limitations, there's a simplicity to the mortal world, an innocence. Hell doesn't have that? Hell is politics and power games and ancient grudges playing out over millennia. It's exhausting. Caleb turned to him. But it's also beautiful in its own way. Terrible, yes, but magnificent, like a cathedral built from obsidian and screams. You make it sound almost appealing. Wait until you see it. Caleb's smile was complicated. You'll hate it and be awed by it in equal measure. That's the nature of hell. It's designed to provoke extreme reactions. The night before they sealed the final fracture, Caleb taught Jocbe the ritual that would allow him to cross between worlds. It required blood, naturally, a permanent mark carved into Jocbe's palm that would serve as an anchor point. The symbols were Enochian, burning as they settled into his flesh. But when it was done, Jocbe could feel the connection, a thread linking him to hell itself, thin but unbreakable.
This mark is your key, Caleb explained, tracing the symbols on Jocbe's palm. When you want to cross over, you speak the words I'll teach you and channel power through the mark. It will open a doorway, but only for you. No one else can use it. Can I come back whenever I want? Yes, the gateway works both ways. You could spend a day in hell and return to find only minutes have passed here, or vice versa. Time flows differently between realms. Caleb's expression grew serious. But be careful. The more time you spend in hell, the more it will change you. Your body will adapt. Your magic will evolve. You'll need less food, less sleep. Your senses will sharpen. Eventually, you'll stop aging altogether. Is that such a bad thing? It means watching everyone you know in this world grow old and die while you remain. It means never truly belonging here again. Caleb's hand tightened on his. I need you to understand the weight of what you're choosing, Jocbe. Once you start walking between worlds regularly, there's no going back to who you were. Jocbe looked at the mark on his palm, still raw, still burning slightly. Then at Caleb's face, beautiful and inhuman in the moonlight. I'm not going back, he said. I only want to go forward with you. Caleb kissed him then, deep and claiming and full of desperate affection. They made love under the stars one final time in the mortal world, slow and intense, memorizing each other's bodies as if they might forget in the crossing. They sealed the final fracture at dawn. It was the original tear, the one created by the failed summoning ritual, larger and more complex than all the others. Closing it required every ounce of their combined power. Jocbe's mortal magic and Caleb's infernal strength woven together in patterns that made reality sing. When the last thread fell into place and the veil sealed shut, the change was immediate. The wrongness that had haunted the clearing disappeared. The air cleared. Birds began to sing again in the forest around them. And Caleb's power fully ignited. He blazed like a dark star, shadows and flames surrounding him, his true form flickering at the edges, wings and horns, and something too vast to fully comprehend. Then he reined it in, condensing back into his human shape, but Jocbe could still feel the power thrumming beneath his skin. It's done, Caleb said, and his voice resonated with otherworldly harmonics. The veil is whole. Reality is stable. I can return to hell now. And I can follow? If you still want to. Caleb extended his hand. Last chance to change your mind, Jocbe Thornewild. Once you cross that threshold, your life will never be the same. Jocbe took his hand without hesitation. Show me hell. Caleb's smile was fierce and proud. He began to speak in Enochian, words of power that made the air crack. A doorway tore open in the center of the clearing. Not a fracture this time, but a deliberate gateway, controlled and stable. Through it, Jocbe could see impossible architecture. Black spires reaching into a crimson sky, streets paved with obsidian, towers that seemed to defy physics. Heat rolled through the opening, carrying the scent of sulfur and something else, something that smelled like power itself. Welcome, Caleb said, pulling him toward the gateway, to my domain. They stepped through together. Hell was magnificent. Jocbe had expected torture and suffering, but Caleb's realm, the ninth circle, the deepest and most powerful, was instead a city of impossible beauty. The architecture was Gothic and modern, somehow simultaneously. All soaring arches and clean lines built from materials that shouldn't exist. The sky burned with stars that were souls, Caleb explained, those who had chosen service in hell over oblivion. This is the administrative heart of hell, Caleb said, leading him through streets where demons in various forms conducted business. The upper circles are where punishment happens. Down here, we manage the system. It's less dramatic than humans imagine. It's beautiful. I designed much of it myself. After the fall, when hell was just chaos and screaming, I helped organize it, created laws, structure, purpose. It's not heaven, But it's not mindless torment either. It's ordered. He showed Jocbe his palace, a massive structure of black glass and silver flame that dominated the city center. Inside were libraries that rivaled anything in the mortal world. Laboratories where demonic scholars studied the nature of reality. Halls where ancient treaties were negotiated. "You rule all this?" Jocbe asked, awed. "I oversee it. Hell has a complex hierarchy. 7 kings, 72 princes, countless dukes and counts. I'm one of the princes, but my role is unique. I maintain the infrastructure, make sure reality doesn't collapse under the weight of all this infernal power." He guided him through corridors lined with doorways that open onto impossible spaces. It's demanding work, but somebody has to do it. They reached Caleb's private chambers, a suite of rooms that managed to be both luxurious and austere. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city. Bookshelves lined every wall. A massive bed dominated one room, draped in black silk. "This is where I live, where we'll live when you're here." The casual assumption that Jocbe would be a regular presence made his heart skip. "You want me to stay? Not just visit? I want you here as often as you can manage. Days, weeks, months, if you're willing." Caleb moved closer, his hands settling on Jocbe's waist. "I know you have a life in the mortal world, responsibilities. But when you can spare the time, I want you here, with me." "What would I do here? I'm a warlock, not a demon." "You'd study, learn, help me with my work if you wanted." Caleb's eyes gleamed with enthusiasm. "There's so much I could teach you, Jocbe. Magic that hasn't been practiced in the mortal world for millennia. Secrets about reality that your warlock academies have forgotten. You could become the most powerful mortal mage in existence. And in return, you give me your company, your brilliant mind, your arguments when you think I'm wrong." Caleb smiled. "Your presence in my bed, if you're still willing." "Always willing." Jocbe pulled him into a kiss. "Show me everything. I want to learn it all." The first weeks in hell were intoxicating. Caleb kept his word, teaching Jocbe magic that made his previous education seem like children's games. They worked in laboratories where reality was more suggestion than law, practicing spells that bent space and time. Caleb introduced him to other demons, scholars and mages who treated Jocbe with cautious respect once they understood he was under the prince's protection. "You're causing quite the stir," Caleb mentioned one evening as they reviewed Jocbe's progress. "A mortal with unrestricted access to hell's knowledge. Some of the other princes are concerned. Should I be worried? No, you're mine. Anyone who touches you answers to me. Besides, you're proving yourself. That modification you made to the temporal stabilization spell? Brilliant. Even my chief architect was impressed." Jocbe felt pride warm his chest. In hell, his abilities were appreciated rather than feared. He could discuss magic openly without worrying about accusations of heresy, could experiment without limits. And the Knights of Caleb were beyond anything he'd imagined. In hell, Caleb didn't have to restrain himself. His power flowed freely and he used it to drive Jocbe to heights of pleasure that bordered on transcendent. He could make time slow so that a single touch lasted for what felt like hours. Could heighten sensation until Jocbe shook apart from a simple kiss. Could sync their pleasure so perfectly that when one climaxed, both did. "I've never been able to let go like this," Caleb confessed one night, holding Jocbe close in the aftermath. "In the mortal world, I always had to be careful, restrained. Here with you, I can be everything I am." "I love everything you are," Jocbe said, meaning it completely. But he also noticed the changes in himself. His magic was evolving, taking on characteristics it hadn't possessed before. Spells came easier, his stamina increased. He needed less sleep, could go days without food. His reflection in mirrors sometimes showed shadows that weren't quite right. Not threatening, just other.
"Is this permanent?" he asked Caleb one morning, studying his hands. They looked the same, but he could feel the power thrumming beneath his skin, foreign and familiar at once. "The changes?" "Yes and no." Caleb came to stand beside him. "Your body's adapting to hell's environment. When you return to the mortal world for extended periods, some of it will fade. But the magical knowledge, the expanded capacity, that's permanent. You're becoming something unique, Jocbe. Not demon, not quite human anymore, something in between. Does it bother you? Oh God, no. Caleb turned them around, holding his face between his hands. You're magnificent. Watching you evolve, seeing you master magic that would destroy lesser minds, it's incredible. I'm in awe of you. The words settled into Jocbe's chest, warm and affirming. In his old life, he'd always been the strange one, the dangerous one, the one to be watched carefully. Here, he was celebrated. After 2 months in hell, which translated to mere weeks in the mortal world due to time's strange flow, Jocbe decided to return briefly to check on things. Father Benedict would be wondering what had happened to him. He had responsibilities, loose ends to tie up. I'll be back within a few days, he promised Caleb. I'll count every moment. Caleb kissed him thoroughly. And when you return, I have something special planned. A journey to the outer reaches of hell, to see the places where reality itself becomes negotiable. Jocbe used the mark on his palm to open a gateway, stepping back into the clearing in the English forest. It was strange being back. Everything seemed muted somehow, less vibrant in hell's intensity. The air felt thin, the magic sluggish. He returned to Canterbury, to his small room that now felt suffocatingly ordinary. Father Benedict was overjoyed to see him, reporting that the strange deaths had stopped completely. The village was calling it a miracle. You did God's work, the priest said fervently. Jocbe didn't correct him. He spent 3 days settling his affairs, packing up the grimoires and supplies he wanted to bring to hell, writing letters to the few people who mattered. His mentor's tower would pass to another warlock. His duties at the cathedral would be absorbed by someone else. He was severing ties, and he knew it. But he felt no regret. On the 3rd night, as he prepared to return to hell, there was a knock at his door. He opened it to find Master Aldrich, one of his former teachers from Prague, looking grave. I heard rumors that you've been consorting with demons, that you disappeared into the forest and emerged changed. His eyes studied Jocbe with the intensity of someone who understood magic. Show me your hands. Jocbe hesitated, then held out his right hand, revealing the mark. Master Aldrich's face went ashen. A crossing mark. Jocbe, what have you done? I've found a teacher better than any academy could provide. I've discovered magic beyond your curriculum. I've chosen a life that actually challenges me. And I'm happy, Master Aldrich, truly happy, for the first time in my life. At what cost? You've marked yourself as something other than human. The church would burn you for this. Other warlocks would hunt you. Then it's fortunate I won't be spending much time in this world anymore. I'm leaving, Master. For good, mostly. I'll visit occasionally, but hell is my home now. Hell. You speak of damnation like it's a holiday destination. Jocbe, demons lie. Whatever promises have been made to you, not all promises, not all demons. I know that I'm choosing, and I choose it freely. Master Aldrich looked at him for a long moment, searching his face. Whatever he saw there made him sigh deeply. Then I suppose there's nothing I can say to change your mind. No. Be careful, my boy. The spaces between worlds are dangerous, and love, if that's what this is, makes us all foolish. Perhaps, but I'd rather be foolishly happy than sensibly miserable. After his teacher left, Jocbe gathered his things and opened the gateway. Stepping through felt like coming home. Years passed, though Jocbe lost track of exactly how many. Time in hell moved strangely, and his visits to the mortal world grew less frequent. He'd return occasionally, sometimes finding that decades had passed while he experienced only months, other times discovering that his week in hell had translated to mere hours in England. He watched the mortal world change from a distance. The great pestilence ran its course. Wars came and went. The Renaissance began to dawn. Each time he visited, the world seemed smaller somehow, less relevant to the life he built. In hell, he flourished. Caleb had been right. He became one of the most powerful magas in existence. He helped design new wards for hell's boundaries, contributed to treaties between demonic factions, taught younger demons the mortal magic they'd forgotten. He earned a respect in his own right, not just as the prince's consort, and his relationship with Caleb deepened into something profound. There were partners in the truest sense, intellectual equals who challenged each other, lovers who never tired of each other, friends who understood each other completely. Caleb shared his vulnerabilities, his doubts about hell's purpose, his lingering grief over losing heaven. Jocbe offered comfort and perspective, a mortal viewpoint that kept Caleb grounded. "I never thought I could have this," Caleb admitted one night, centuries after they'd first met. They were lying in bed, tangled together as always. "I thought the fall meant giving up any chance at genuine connection, that I spend eternity alone among the damned." "You're not alone," Jocbe pressed a kiss to his shoulder. "You have me, as long as you want me." "Forever, then." Caleb's arms tightened. "I want you forever." Jocbe had stopped aging decades ago, his body locked in its prime by hell's influence. He would live as long as Caleb did, which meant effectively forever. The thought should have been terrifying. Instead, it was comforting. But there was a darkness he didn't speak about, a growing emptiness he couldn't quite name. He had abandoned the mortal world almost completely now. His brother, Samuel, long since healed of his illness, had lived a full life and died peacefully, never knowing what Jocbe had become. His former colleagues from the Warlock academies were all gone, dust and memory. He belonged nowhere except hell, and while that had seemed like freedom at first, it was starting to feel like a cage.
Appreciate you watching. Hit subscribe, like, and share. See you in the next story.